her to actually be fully herself. It's where somebody else is telling her, either telling her who she is, or telling her to make up some other person to be because who she is isn't appropriate. Are we out of time?
No, you still have
Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Any other questions?
Are you writing any new books?
I am writing more books. I'm continuing my this co-authored comedy series. I'm also working on an urban fantasy piece where I get to explore myth, because like I said, I'm really into myth. So this one it's one that's going to take a whole bunch of myths from around the world and try to combine all of them and explores what happens if they're all kind of true, but actually are. So you get to meet with, for instance, Charon, who also turns out to be about 3 other sort of Greek, Norse, and Egyptian gods all at the same time. So I'm working on that.
Is your comedy book school appropriate?
What inspired you to write this?
I had a story I really wanted to tell. There's a really great phrase I've heard around recently that when people, and it's an old one, where people talk about having a fire in their bones, that they have to just speak or it'll get out, right? Sometimes you got a story and you need to tell it so bad that you sit down and you start writing. And that's what it was with this one. I was working on other projects. Actually, that myth thing I was just telling you about, I was working on that already, and it just got completely put on hold because all of a sudden I had this story I had to write.
No.
Have you ever thought of writing in genres other than comedy or fantasy?
Yes, I've thought about it. I've thought about sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi fantasy geek, so I've thought about those. Those are probably the 2. I've thought about doing some nonfiction stuff, but I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions?
Is your comedy one school appropriate?
It is, I think.
I think.
Yes, I'm gonna go with yes. No, it is. The comedy one's funny. It comes out in, so I release them in these little booklets. So they're all very manageable. We call them, these are episodes. So we're gonna go through 8 episodes and then we'll have season 1 out. So we're releasing it sort of almost in a serial form. And then eventually we'll package season 1 as sort of one large book. Yeah. Which one? The funny one. Let me see. Here we go. So the main character's name is Jimmy Acorn. He is interviewing for a job as a concierge at a really high-end, ritzy sort of apartment complex. And there's a bellboy there whose name is Billiam. And he's interviewing with a rather intimidating manager named Mr. Schwartz. Let's see here. All right, so a guy comes by while Jimmy's filling out his application and asks a few questions and walks outside and leaves his briefcase. And so Jimmy decides to take the briefcase to the guy in the middle of the thing, thinking it'll make him look good in the interview. Right? Let's see. So Jimmy says, "I'll be right back." Billiam says, "Yes, Mr. Acorn. Just so you know, help anybody who comes by and don't break anything." "Yes, Mr. Schwartz." Billiam rang the bell. "Acorn." "Yes, Mr. Acorn." Jimmy reached the door in a few crisp strides and stepped out into bright daylight. The man who had asked for the briefcase was engaged in a phone call nearby. Wordlessly, Jimmy handed in the briefcase. The man nodded a silent thanks and turned back to his call. Jimmy turned to re-enter the building. The door was locked. With a sigh of mild frustration, Jimmy pressed the intercom button. I wrote it that way. "It's me, Billiam." There was a long pause. The door did not click. Jimmy pressed the button again, more insistently. "Jimmy Acorn!" Jimmy shouted into the intercom. The man with the suit gave him a sharp look. "Sorry," he added, lowering his voice. "It's me, Jimmy Acorn!" hissed Jimmy. "Let me back in, Billiam." "I'm not an unidentified person," shouted Jimmy, drawing another disapproving look. "I was just talking to you. You can see me." He banged on the glass of the front door and cupped a hand over his eyes to peer through. Dimly behind the desk, he could see Billiam giving a cheerful wave. Then a young woman in the housekeeping uniform rang the bell, and Billy turned to assist her. Jimmy jabbed the intercom buzzer 5 times, then a 6th and a 7th for good measure. Jimmy felt his face growing hot. Billiam, if you don't let me in this minute, I swear to... Do you mind? Snapped the man on the phone, laying his hand momentarily over the mouthpiece. Oh, why don't you just... Jimmy was cut short as a young man with an expensive shirt and a bad haircut passed between him and the man in the suit. Excuse me, he murmured and pressed the intercom button. Deshaun James, the young man replied. The door clicked. Mr. James entered the building. Are you kidding me? Cried Jimmy, dashing inside before the door could close. He slipped through the swinging reception desk door and faced Billiam. What's wrong with you? Sorry, Mr. Acorn. Protocol. What protocol? We can't let in just anybody, Mr. Acorn. Mr. Schwartz runs a tight ship. I'd hate to get you in trouble by letting in unauthorized persons on your watch. Billiam pulled a small notebook out of a pocket and flipped it open with a businesslike air. A few small items to report, sir. I took delivery of a puppy belonging to one of the tenants while you were out. A puppy? Yes, sir. His name is Colonel Stuffins, sir, but he prefers Stuffy. He needs a walk and a bath. William indicated a small, fluffy white dog tethered to the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. The dog yapped. A bath? Yes, sir. The groomer should be able to assist, sir. The groomer? Yes, sir. William flipped a page in his notebook. I denied entry to one unidentified person or interloper and permitted entry for one tenant whom I was unfortunately unable to identify due to technical difficulties with the intercom system, sir. Wait, you weren't able to identify him? No, Mr. Acorn. It's very hard to understand anything over the intercom, Mr. Acorn. Then how did you know he was a tenant? I performed a visual inspection, sir. But you could see me. I was standing right there. Jimmy flung an arm at the door. I was literally standing next to him. Yes, Mr. Acorn. Why didn't you let me in? Can't be too careful, Mr. Acorn. But he faces that sort of frustrating situation.